Hi everyone, this is Freddie with Superbike Unlimited, and we're about to bring you another update on our Ducati V4R Superbike project. We're really excited about this because, frankly, this is, I think, one of the coolest bikes we've ever built, and it's cool to see we're really getting close to being able to actually race this motorcycle in full spec. And we've gotten some updates because you may recall that when we put our electronics package on, some of the parts, it's all prototype stuff. You know, this is all first generation and first of its kind. This electronics package was developed. It was our idea and concept, and then some other people basically all collaborated and helped us create this kit. And you know, we were kind of like, we need this immediately. So inevitably there were some things that weren't quite a perfect fit, and that's okay. That's how this kind of stuff works. And so now we have some updated parts, and we're going to show you those now. One of them is the central saddle, as it's called. This is basically the part that holds several of our key components, such as our IMU that we're using, a lot of our LTC and ignition driver components, fuses, and our starter relay. I can't think of the terminology that they use, but essentially our solid state power distribution device. So this is, I hope, really going to help us tidy up everything, because now we've kind of got some wiring and stuff that's kind of just tucked in there. And while it works fine, it's just not as pretty as I would like it to be. And realistically, this should reduce any potential wear or strain on the wiring. And we'll show you what we're talking about once we get everything pulled off to display all that. Also, we have an updated solution for the ECU. This is going to keep the ECU where we have it now, but right now we've kind of just got it shoved in between the airbox and the frame, and we've used some foam with an adhesive backing on it to try to isolate any vibration. We also use a specific ECU that has a special potting in it to minimize potential issues from vibration and things. It's a little more durable and robust, also waterproofs it. And so we're going to be putting this on. This is essentially going to mount to the frame, kind of clasp onto it there, and that should really stabilize our ECU mount. And then we have an updated sensor mount as well for air pressure. So this is going to be something that we have something that sort of works now, but there's a slight possibility of movement or you know, basically banging around inside the airbox, which is where this is located. So this ought to resolve that. So what we're going to do now is just take all this stuff down, and we'll show you what we're working with, and which we've actually had to heavily modify some of those components just to get the clearance we needed. And oh yes, and also this is going to resolve our rectifier and regulator mount. We had an issue with that as well. We basically had to buy a spare one and kind of cut it up to allow it to fit. We cut the fins down a bit. Not ideal, because that essentially is reducing its cooling capacity. So this is going to allow us to resolve that as well. So anyway, we're going to pull all this off, show you what we've got, and then we're going to test fit all this, and hopefully it's just like a perfect fit and everything's nice and tidy. Okay, so here you can see what everything looks like, essentially fully exposed. And what I'm going to point out is that, you know, this is the saddle assembly that we're replacing. You can see where we are using some of its functionality here. We've got a couple of the lambda to can modules. Over here you have ignition driver, but the bulk of this thing has been kind of hacked up, and it's not serving some of the purposes it was supposed to serve. This was supposed to be the rectifier mount, and instead you can see this is what I meant. We've essentially cut that and sort of stuck it in there, and we're holding it in place here. Certainly not ideal, but it was just enough to kind of get us by. And over here, you know, all of this was supposed to hold connectors. You can see these areas that have sort of been cut off like this there. That was all done because we had to do that to get our IMU position properly and everything clearance the way we needed to. So this new version should resolve all of these issues. And I believe it's going to allow us to use the battery that we wanted to test out as well, which was going to be the YLP10. And this was before we had the YLP9s, which now we found a battery that would actually fit perfectly in this slot, but we wanted to use the 10 in the first place, so this is going to be a better solution. Okay, so here we have some things laid out. This is our old harness that we're going to be basically replacing, because the new one is essentially integrated into this. It's obviously much tidier. One thing that's nice is we did just complete an order for a customer who ordered one of these kits from us, and it took a little longer than expected because we really wanted to get them on the updated saddle, and we were able to provide that. So the next guy that's running one of these is actually going to have this exact same configuration as us. And this is just, I'll show you how this battery fit is in here. It's really, frankly, perfect. And this is I feel this is the perfect size battery for this motorcycle, especially with, you know, a strong electronics package like this that's going to have a little bit of a draw when the engine is off and you're doing some downloads. This is going to have that reserve that you need to do that. We still like to use a jumper just for safety, but this is going to get the job done. And here you can see we're going to put it all together, but again, this is going to hold our 2 Lambda controllers. This is going to hold our ignition driver, and it's all just going to be really bundled up and tight. All right, so here you can see our updated air temperature and air pressure sensor mount, and that's what this is right here, and it's just going to go on top of this inlet motor, the funnel motor essentially. And this is going to be a perfect fit. However, the one thing that we have to be aware of is that its potential to possibly rotate into the funnel here. Obviously these are moving, and we don't want something, you know, blocking movement or somehow jamming up in there. So what Tex is going to do is essentially use an RTV type of compound that's easily removable should we ever want to just secure this from rotating. It doesn't need a lot, so he's just going to put a little bit in there. That'll keep it in place and keep everything nice and secure. You're going to want to use about half a tube. There it is. Perfect. That's a wrap. We'll just let that set, and that should keep that in place. Okay, so here we have our central saddle all set up. We're using a new style of solid state starter relay. This is our original one, of course, which was specific to this old loom. The new one, what's nice about this is it's actually a direct replacement for the Ducati stock unit. So if for some reason this ever had to be swapped out or replaced at the racetrack or something, you could literally just plug a stock one in and this would work. Uses an OEM connector. So that's kind of a nice feature here. It makes things a lot more modular and serviceable. And essentially Tex is just going to pop the battery in and button everything up. We have our LTCDs, Lambda to CAN units here in place. Everything's like a really nice snug fit, and of course the Ignition 4 is in place as well. Right away you can see this is just going to be a lot tighter than what we had before. Everything is just going to be essentially held into place, so there's not going to be wires rubbing and stuff kind of just banging around at speed. Now we have a lot more security in our system. Nice. Looks good. And now we're just going to secure all those in the little holders and see what it looks like wrapped up. All right, we've got this thing mounted on top of the airbox, and right away it just looks much more compact and controlled. Everything is secured. Now all of our LTCD and ignition drivers or connections are secure. We only have these Lambda connectors, and these actually go directly to the sensors, so we'll just have to reroute and sort that out as needed. Everything looks really good. I really like how they've integrated this IMU mount in a slightly different way. The battery's completely covered up. It's just a really nice, compact, and tidy unit, and when you pick this thing up, it just feels like everything's packaged really carefully. So now we're just going to do a quick test fit with the fuel tank, make sure everything clears. We're actually going to have to do some modification to our loom to accept this new design. We're essentially going to have to cut this boot off. We're going to have to probably adjust the angle of these boots just a little bit. But first, we're just going to make sure that everything goes on the way we're expecting, and then we're not going to have any clearance issues. And then we're going to start cutting stuff up. Well, while we are in the middle of working on this and getting ready to finish our wiring modification, we've received a package, and I'm really excited to say that we have our new delivery of Bodywork in, and I really like this stuff. I think it's going to be a super nice look, so we'll just get right to it. This is the new stuff that we're going to be using. This is still obviously carbon fiber, but it's a finer weave, and I think I just prefer the look of this quite a bit over the whole of the motorcycle. So you can see what we've done here is we've kind of laid it next to the other stuff. This for sure looks a little more unique, and obviously the weave is much larger, and so in some ways it looks a little really exotic and strange because it's so different. But I think this is going to be more along the lines of what I'm looking for in the aesthetics of this bike. But what I think we're going to do, and I'm going to at least see what it looks like. It might not work out, but I just want to try. We're going to leave the larger, the 400 gram stuff on the chassis parts, the frame, the swing arm, probably the air duct as well. We'll see. And then the rest of the bike, I'm not sure about the tank cover and stuff yet. I'm probably going to go with the newer style on that, but I might do that just so there's a little bit of contrast between chassis and bodywork. I think that might look kind of cool. But yeah, this is our new stuff. You can see here we've got pretty different but similar, really high quality. This stuff is extremely lightweight, and of course we did get some new winglets, so if nothing else, it'll be good to have this as a potential set of spares. And now we're going to mount all this stuff up and see what it looks like compared to the old style. Also, we got a belly pan that's going to suit our exhaust a bit better, and I'll show you what I mean by that. We had the other belly was set up for an Acro. Okay, so we've gotten our new bodywork installed, and I gotta say I'm really happy with this. I think it's gonna be a nice change. I do prefer the look of this carbon fiber, and actually I thought the old stuff was really cool, but I think it's really neat the way we now have this larger 400 gram weave on the frame area, and the bodywork is going to be this tighter 200 gram. To me, it adds the contrast that the bike needs. I commented earlier, I wouldn't complain if the bodywork, or excuse me, the exhaust system's carbon panels were the same as our bodywork, but you got to take what you can get when it comes to that. And yeah, overall, I think this looks really good. I'll just show you what we're working with here. This thing just looks really aggressive right now. It's almost gonna be a shame to put our decals and number plates and stuff on it, but you have to. Very nice. Well, we have just a few more things to finish up. We definitely are going to have to do some modifications because the updated wiring harness, like the one that we just sent to the last customer that bought one of our electronics packages, it's all set, plug and play. We were kind of modifying a couple of our looms to adapt to the new cradle and stuff that we've shown in this video. There's a couple of pieces that just the wire is not quite long enough, so we're going to have to put some extensions on to allow those connectors to not have strain and stuff. So we're going to get a couple of small things. We're going to have them made up, and we're going to do some very minor work, which we'll document. And then hopefully by the end of the week, or actually, excuse me, probably by the middle of next week, we'll be able to wrap up the install. So for now, I think we're just going to call it on this video. We want to go ahead and show you guys this and let you see this stuff as soon as possible. So we're just going to go ahead and button this up, and we're going to call this a wrap. And then next week, we'll finish up our loom install. We'll show you how all that's going to go. Do a little bit more tuning on the dyno, and then in the near future we're going to put some race gas in this thing and see how much it makes with some of the oxygenated fuel. Hopefully some impressive numbers. So I think that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching all of our videos, and thank you for commenting and being involved of our projects here. So we really appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe, leave us comments. Oh, and you know what, actually before I forget, it's really important. Something that we want to do is we want to start, we have actually a viewer that we speak with pretty regularly, made a suggestion that I really like. If you guys have any questions that you want us to answer that are specific, any kind of topic that you want us to cover, anything like that, you know, please ask in the comments, email us at info@SuperbikeUnlimited.com. You can even DM us on Instagram at SuperbikeUnlimited, any of that stuff. Just drop us a line, message in the comment in the video. We don't care. But if you have any questions you want us to answer, hit us with those and we're going to compile a list. And in the next video, we're going to answer a few of them. One of them I'll go ahead and answer right now because we've had a few people ask this, and it's specific to the reason why we would have 5 lambda sensors on an exhaust system, and this one we're only running 4. On some bikes like the ZX10, we're going to have 5. Why do we do that? So the reason for that is because the ZX10R, we can't do auto tuning per cylinder with the firmware that we have on that. So what we do is we tune each cylinder manually, and then we still continue to log those 4 cylinders at all times when we're on the dyno, we're at the racetrack, etc. And then the single lambda at the very end, which is going to be close to the silencer, that's for closed loop or auto tuning style function. So that's the reason why we would do that. They kind of serve different purposes. You know, they were all working towards the same goal, but not exactly the same function. So that's why we do that. On this, it's a little different. These lambda sensors are the same ones that are used for closed loop and for all those logging purposes, so it's a little different. But that was a question somebody asked, and I'm happy to provide an answer for. Okay, so we're back at this. We've done some modification to the loom. Tex has essentially cut off this old boot, and we've just rerouted some of this. So this is still actually the original harness that we've made. In doing this, since this is like the prototype version, we had some links that came up short, and fortunately we were able to get some handy extensions made. Obviously, this is something that normally you want to avoid, but absolutely nothing wrong with this. So we have a few, essentially just leads that are just going to extend. This is for a pot. This is the fuel pump, and we have another one that you'll see as we work further towards this. But this is just going to allow us to not have too much strain on these and retain our functionality. We're having to completely redesign this loom, and functionally there's no issue at all. It might actually make it a little easier at times. If we're at the track, we have 2 connectors that we can potentially access, whichever one's easier. Just pop that one loose. So we're going to finish putting this back together and see how it all looks. Alrighty, so we've gotten everything in place here. In this, you can now see the modified main ECU loom, and basically all the saddle and everything is in place. This is all sort of stuff that we're just gonna kind of test fit. We're gonna put the tank on, see how everything fits, and if it all clears okay. But just the preliminary inspection, it all looks pretty good. The main thing, we don't have anything making interference with our IMU. Everything is nice and secure except for these lambda connectors, which have a little bit of movement. Not really anything I'm worried about. They should be perfectly fine. But yeah, everything is just nice and compact and secure. We're not really crazy about what we've got going on here with this main extension. We're probably going to change the angles of at least one of these boots and make it straight, just to kind of figure out a more tidy solution there. But it's going to work fine. It just, I don't like the way it looks. But here we'll just give you a quick walk around and show you sort of what we're working with here. Something else I just want to show is we finally got in our Harris rear stands, and I really like this. This is a stand that we've been trying to get a hold of for quite some time. We finally got some in for stock, and it's really cool because the Pitbull stand that we had this deal, you may have seen in the other videos, where it would kind of hang off the back. Didn't actually have a flat on it. It kind of had like an area that just went to a point, and that was the what it kind of stabilized on. This one actually has a flat that goes directly underneath the wheel, so that's going to be really cool because we'll be able to use this with our work table at the racetrack as well, whereas we could not do that previously. So got those now. But anyway, back on track, everything's looking really good. So now Tex is going to fit the fuel tank. We're just going to see if everything clears, and hopefully we're just going to be buttoning this thing up. Okay, here we're going to show you how this goes back on. It is a little bit of a tight fit now. Let me get that line in there first. There we go. But it does go on. It's just a little more snug now that we have this new mount for the R&R on the other side. But there we go. And it looks like this is all going to be fine here. Yeah, we got it. Yeah, there's still movement there. That pops in. Perfect. Yeah, everything's good. Plenty of room for the LTC connectors with the tank cover or the airbox cover on. Yeah, this is going to be a pretty big upgrade, I think, from the old design. Sweet. yeah, I think we're ready to go. Now we just have to do some basic prelim stuff with the laptop hookup. Make sure that we didn't, before these were not labeled. And we're just going to double check that our LTC connections are still the way we expect them to be. And if not, we'll just do some quick changing of those connectors. And then I think everything's going to be ready to rip. Something else we want to show you guys while we're wrapping this thing up is we're going to try out a new e-throttle. And of course, what that means, and I'm sure most of you know, but the V4 and many other modern superbikes, including the R1 and the ZX10, now have the actual throttle sensor inside this housing here. So instead, in the old, I say the old days, pretty recently still, and on some motorcycles this is still the case, there was essentially a cable throttle here that ran down to another sensor that was down by the actual throttle body and drive-by-wire motor. That sensor then fed the drive-by-wire motor values, and you know, it would basically translate to whatever the torque tables were and whatnot. Now that's all happening right here, and this is going straight to the drive-by-wire motor. When you run a MoTeC or any other type of superbike ECU that allows you to calibrate different throttles and things like that, you have the freedom of choosing different throttle assemblies, something you really couldn't get away with a stock ECU. So we're just using this one because A, it's much smaller, it's got a metal housing, and B, it has a shorter throw. The throw on the stock V4 throttle was just a bit on the long side for my preference, and this one is, I think, going to be just right. It's not too short, so the thing's going to be insanely sensitive, but it's got that nice progression that's going to give us, you know, you roll off the brake and you can easily go to full throttle without too much trouble. So now we're going to go ahead and put this thing back together, and I think that's going to be about it for this one. We'll wrap it up and show you what everything looks like put together, and give you some final words. All right, so I think that's going to be a wrap for this. We've gotten everything installed, and we're really happy with how it came out. The bodywork looks really tidy. New throttle is in place and looking really good. You can see it's much smaller on the handlebar. We might be able to actually move this over a little bit if we need to. And of course, the electronics are now much more compact and well organized. I'm really happy about that, because the way we had it before, theoretically, we could have seen some wear and tear that would have been a bit premature versus what we've got now. So I think the next big event for us is going to be putting this thing back on the racetrack. We're at that point of the in time where the season's about to kick back off, and we're going to try to look into doing a race in about 2 weeks. I think it's probably going to be too cold. And then for sure in March, we're going to be doing some testing, and then probably going to Roebling Road with Weira. So I think that's going to do it for this one. We are going to try to do another video before the next race event where we put some race fuel in this thing and do some tuning, see what kind of power it makes on oxygenated fuel. But if nothing else, we'll see you when we go to the racetrack. Thanks again for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. See you next time.